The man who destroyed Mira Halden's life walked back into it on Christmas Eve, not with an apology, but with a confession that turned 10 years of grief into a lie. She thought she'd buried him. She thought she'd moved on. But when Damon Varga appeared in that candlelit chapel, scarred and hollow-eyed, he brought the truth she never asked for. He didn't leave because he stopped loving her. He left to keep her breathing. Now she has to decide whether to forgive the ghost who made her a widow without the courtesy of a funeral, or tell him about the daughter he doesn't know exists. Follow this story to the end, hit that like button, and drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this tale travels. The chapel smelled like pine and old hymns. Mira Halden sat in the third pew from the back, right side, same spot she'd claimed every Christmas Eve for the past 4 years. The town's stone music hall had been converted into a multi-use space decades ago, and on nights like this, when candles lined the windowsills and the old pipe organ wheezed through carols, it almost felt sacred. Not church sacred, Mira had given up on that particular comfort, but sacred in the way quiet places become when you need them most. She wore a charcoal wool coat buttoned to the throat, and her hands rested in her lap, fingers laced loosely. Her daughter Lena was at home with Mrs. Chen from next door, probably negotiating extra cookies and a later bedtime. Mira had promised to be back by 9. She had 40 minutes. The organist transitioned into something slower, minor key, and Mira closed her eyes. This was her ritual. Arrive late enough to miss the crowd, leave early enough to avoid small talk, and spend 30 minutes letting the music do what therapy couldn't. Elementary music teacher by day, functioning adult by sheer force of will. This was the hour she allowed herself to stop performing. The heavy oak doors creaked open behind her. Cold air rushed down the aisle, sharp enough to make the candles flicker. Mira didn't turn around. Late arrivals weren't unusual. The service was informal, drop in, no judgment. She pulled her coat tighter and kept her eyes forward. Footsteps echoed on the stone floor, slow, deliberate, closer. Then they stopped. Right beside her pew. Mira's spine went rigid. She didn't look. She didn't breathe. Because some part of her, the part that still woke at 3 a.m., in a cold sweat, the part that checked locks twice and kept pepper spray in her purse, that part recognized the weight of the silence. Mira. Her name, spoken low and rough, like gravel over glass. 10 years dissolved. She turned her head slowly, and there he was. Damon Varga. Older, harder. A scar bisected his left eyebrow, faint but visible in the candlelight. His jaw was sharper, his cheekbones more pronounced, like someone had taken a chisel to the man she remembered and carved away everything soft. He wore a dark coat, expensive but worn, and his hands hung at his sides, no gloves, knuckles scarred. Mira's heart didn't race. It stopped, then restarted, violent and uneven. "No," she whispered. Damon's expression didn't change. "I need 5 minutes." "No!" Louder now. The organist missed a note, recovered. A few heads turned. "Please." Mira stood abruptly, grabbing her purse. Her legs felt disconnected from her body, but she moved anyway, stepping past him into the aisle. She didn't run. Running would mean he still had power. She walked, heels clicking on stone, each step measured and deliberate. She made it to the doors before his voice stopped her. "They were going to kill you." Mira's hand froze on the iron handle. "I didn't have a choice," Damon said, quieter now, but somehow louder in the vaulted space. "If I'd stayed, they would have used you to destroy me, and they would have enjoyed it." She didn't turn around. "Get out." "I left to keep you alive." "You left because you're a coward." Her voice cracked, and she hated herself for it. "You filed for divorce, called me a mistake, and walked away like I was nothing. Don't you dare rewrite history because you're bored or guilty or whatever the hell this is." "I know what I said." His footsteps approached, slow, careful. "I know what I did, but I need you to understand." Mira spun, and the movement was so sharp, so sudden, that Damon actually took a step back. "You don't get to do this," she hissed. "You don't get to show up after 10 years and ask for understanding. You made your choice. I made mine. We're done." "I know about Lena." The world tilted. Mira's breath caught, lodged somewhere between her lungs and throat. Her vision tunneled. The candlelight became too bright, the air too thin. What? Damon's jaw tightened. I know you have a daughter, 9 years old, born in April. How? Mira's voice was barely audible. How do you know that? I've been keeping tabs. Not close, just enough to know you were safe. You've been watching me? Watching over you. There's a difference. Mira laughed, sharp and bitter. You think that makes it better? You think stalking me from a distance for a decade is some kind of twisted proof of love? I never stopped loving you. Don't. Mira's hand shot up, palm out, a physical barrier. Don't you dare say that to me. Damon exhaled slowly, and for the first time she saw something crack in his composure. His shoulders sagged, just slightly, his hands curled into loose fists, then released. You're right, he said quietly. I have no right. But I need to explain. There's nothing to explain. You left. I survived. End of story. Is Lena mine? The question hung in the air like smoke. Mira felt her nails dig into her palms. Her throat burned. She wanted to lie. She wanted to tell him Lena was someone else's, that he had no claim, no connection, no reason to stay. But the truth sat on her tongue, heavy and inevitable. Get out, she repeated. Mira, get out. Damon held her gaze for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a card, and set it on the edge of the nearest pew. I'll be at the Rosewood Inn for the next 3 days, he said. If you want to talk, really talk, I'll be there. If you don't, I'll disappear again. For good this time. He walked past her, pushed through the doors, and vanished into the snow. Mira stood frozen, trembling, until the organist finished the carol and the last notes faded into silence. Then she grabbed the card, shoved it in her pocket, and walked out into the cold. The drive home was a blur. Mira gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles ached. Snow fell in fat, lazy flakes, coating the windshield faster than the wipers could clear them. She drove on autopilot, muscle memory navigating the familiar streets, while her mind replayed the last 15 minutes on loop. I know about Lena. I never stopped loving you. They were going to kill you. Lies. All of it. Had to be. Except Damon Varga had never been a liar. Manipulative, yes. Ruthless, absolutely. But a liar? No. When he'd filed for divorce, he'd looked her in the eye and said, You were a mistake. I don't love you. I never did. No hesitation, no softness, just cold, clean precision. If he'd been lying then, what did that mean now? Mira pulled into the driveway of her small 2-bedroom rental. The porch light glowed warm and yellow. Inside, through the front window, she could see Mrs. Chen on the couch, knitting, and Lena curled up beside her with a book. Safe. Mira sat in the car for a full minute, breathing slowly, forcing her hands to unclench. Then she grabbed her purse, stepped out into the snow, and walked inside. Mama! Lena bounced off the couch, all elbows and energy. Mrs. Chen let me stay up because I promised to read 2 chapters of my book, and she said you'd be proud because it's above my grade level and… Breathe, sweetheart. Mira managed to smile, crouching down to meet Lena's eyes. Her daughter had dark curls that refused to be tamed, sharp green eyes, and a gap-toothed grin that could disarm world leaders. Did you finish your chapters? Yep, and I helped Mrs. Chen with her scarf. Well, I tried. Mostly I just tangled the yarn. Mrs. Chen chuckled, tucking her knitting into a canvas bag. She's a good girl, Mira. No trouble at all. The older woman paused, studying Mira's face with the kind of perception that came from raising 5 children and outliving 2 husbands. You all right, dear? You look pale. Just cold. Mira straightened, pulling off her coat. Thank you for staying late. Any time. Mrs. Chen patted Lena's head on her way to the door. Merry Christmas, you two. Merry Christmas, Mira and Lena chorused. The door clicked shut, and suddenly the house felt too quiet. Mama? Lena tilted her head, studying her with unsettling intensity. Did something happen? Mira's chest tightened. Why do you ask? You have your something happened face, like when the principal called about Jacob throwing paint. Smart. Too smart. Mira had always known Lena was sharp, but moments like this reminded her just how little she could hide. I'm fine, baby. Just tired. Mira kissed the top of Lena's head. Brush your teeth. It's late. Lena hesitated, clearly unconvinced, but she knew better than to push when Mira used that tone. Okay, but if you need to talk, I'm a very good listener. Mrs. Chen says I have an old soul. I know you do. Mira's voice softened. Now go. Teeth. Bed. Lena scampered off and Mira sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. Is Lena mine? She could still see the look in his eyes when he'd asked. Not demanding, not entitled, just raw. The card in her pocket felt like it was burning through the fabric. Mira pulled it out, stared at the plain white surface. No logo. Just a phone number and 2 words written in Damon's precise handwriting. I'm sorry. She should throw it away. She should call the police, report him for harassment, get a restraining order. She should protect her daughter from the man who'd once built an empire on violence and fear. Instead, she tucked the card into her wallet and went to tuck Lena into bed. Lena's room was small but warm. Walls painted pale yellow and covered in drawings of animals, sheet music, and a poster of a famous cellist Mira had taken her to see last spring. Lena sat cross-legged on her bed, hair still damp from brushing her teeth, wearing dinosaur pajamas that were getting too small. Mama, can I ask you something? Mira sat on the edge of the bed, smoothing the blankets. Always. Do I have a dad? The question landed like a fist to the gut. Mira kept her expression neutral, even as her heart tried to claw its way out of her chest. What makes you ask that? Lena shrugged, picking at a loose thread on her blanket. Emma's dad came to the winter concert, and Marcus's dad helped build the set for the school play. And I know you're my mom, and you're the best mom, but I was wondering if there's a dad somewhere, even if he's not around. Mira's throat tightened. She'd prepared for this conversation. She'd rehearsed answers in the mirror, consulted parenting books, even talked to her therapist. But nothing had prepared her for the calm, matter-of-fact way Lena asked. No tears, no drama, just curiosity. You do have a dad, Mira said carefully, but he's not part of our lives right now. Why not? It's complicated. Lena wrinkled her nose. That's what adults say when they don't want to explain. Mira exhaled a soft laugh despite herself. You're right. Okay. The truth is, your dad and I were married a long time ago, but things didn't work out and we went our separate ways before you were born. Does he know about me? Mira hesitated. Until tonight, the answer had been no. Now? He does now. Lena's eyes widened. Did you tell him today? Not exactly. He found out another way. Is that why you have your something happened face? Yeah, baby, that's why. Lena processed this, her expression serious in that unnervingly adult way she sometimes got. Do you think he'd want to meet me? Mira's breath caught. I don't know, maybe. Would you want to meet him? Lena considered this, chewing her bottom lip. I don't know either. I mean, I'm curious, but also, what if he's mean or boring? Or what if he doesn't like me? Anyone who doesn't like you is an idiot, Mira said fiercely, pulling Lena into a hug. You're smart, funny, brave, and kind. If he can't see that, it's his loss. Lena squeezed back, her small arms surprisingly strong. You're a little biased, Mama. Completely biased, proudly biased. They stayed like that for a moment, Mira breathing in the scent of strawberry shampoo and laundry detergent, trying to memorize the feeling of Lena fitting perfectly in her arms. She wouldn't always be this small, wouldn't always need her mother to chase away the big questions. Okay, Lena said, pulling back. If he wants to meet me, I'll think about it, but only if you say it's safe, and only if he's nice to you. Because you're my favorite person, and nobody gets to be mean to you. Mira's eyes stung. Deal. Good. Lena flopped back onto her pillow, yawning. Can we have pancakes tomorrow? Absolutely. With chocolate chips? Don't push your luck. Lena grinned, and Mira kissed her forehead, turned off the light, and closed the door most of the way. Then she walked to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of wine she didn't want, and stared at Damon's card until the words blurred. She didn't sleep. At 2 a.m., Mira gave up, threw on a robe, and padded into the living room. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of old pipes. She curled up on the couch with a blanket and a notebook, the same one she used to sketch lesson plans and grocery lists. Instead, she wrote, Timeline, Met Damon, June 2013, charity gala. I was playing violin for the event. He bought me a drink afterward. Said I played like I was trying to break something. Married, April 2014, City Hall, no family, just us and a judge who looked bored. Divorced, September 2015. He filed. Said I was a mistake, didn't contest, didn't fight, just signed and walked away. Lena born, April 2016. Didn't tell him, didn't know how, didn't want to. Mira stared at the list, then added, tonight. He claims he left to protect me. Claims rivals were hunting him. Claims I was leverage. Question, is he lying? Follow-up question, does it matter? She underlined the last question 3 times because that was the real problem, wasn't it? Even if Damon was telling the truth, even if he'd genuinely sacrificed their marriage to keep her safe, what did that change? He'd still hurt her, still left her alone, broke and grieving, to rebuild a life from nothing. Still robbed Lena of a father. Good intentions didn't erase damage, but they complicated forgiveness. Mira closed the notebook, shoved it under the couch cushion, and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere across town, Damon Vargo was staying at the Rosewood Inn, waiting for a phone call that might never come. And Mira had 3 days to decide whether to give him the thing he wanted most, or destroy him with the truth he didn't see coming. Christmas morning arrived cold and bright. Lena woke Mira at 6 a.m. by launching herself onto the bed with the subtlety of a small rhinoceros. Presents. Mama, it's Christmas. Can we do stockings first, or presents, or breakfast, or coffee? Mira groaned, pulling a pillow over her face. Mama needs coffee. You always need coffee. And yet I never have enough. Lena giggled, tugging the pillow away. Come on, I've been good all year, even when Jacob threw paint. You didn't throw paint, Jacob did. Exactly. I was very good. Mira couldn't help but smile. Okay. Give me 5 minutes. 2 minutes. 4. 3. And I'll make you toast. Deal. Lena sprinted out of the room, and Mira dragged herself upright, rubbing her eyes. She'd managed maybe 2 hours of sleep, total, and her head felt stuffed with cotton. But it was Christmas, and Lena deserved better than a zombie mother. She pulled on sweatpants and an old sweater, splashed cold water on her face, and followed the sound of off-key singing into the kitchen. Lena had already set out 2 plates, 2 mugs, and a slightly burnt piece of toast. The Christmas tree in the corner, a scraggly 4-footer they'd decorated with homemade ornaments and dollar store lights, blinked cheerfully. Your toast, madam, Lena announced, presenting the plate with a flourish. Perfect. Mira took a bite, pretended not to notice the char. You're hired. They opened presents slowly, savoring each one. Mira had saved for months to afford the beginner's keyboard Lena had been begging for. And when her daughter's face lit up, it was worth every extra shift, every skipped lunch. Mama, this is the best present ever. Lena threw her arms around Mira's neck. Thank you. You're welcome, baby. Now you can practice at home instead of just at school. Lena immediately started pressing keys, experimenting with sounds, utterly absorbed. Mira watched her, chest tight with a complicated mix of love and fear. What if Damon wanted to be part of this? What if he demanded custody, visitation, rights? What if Lena chose him? Stop. Mira shook her head, forcing the spiral to halt. She couldn't control the future. She could only decide what to do next. And right now, sitting on the couch with her daughter playing choppy scales on a brand new keyboard, the answer felt clear. She had to talk to Damon, not because she owed him anything, but because Lena deserved the truth. All of it. The Rosewood Inn sat on the edge of town, a converted Victorian manor with gabled windows and a wraparound porch. Mira pulled into the parking lot at noon, after dropping Lena at a friend's house for a play date. Her hands were steady on the wheel, but her stomach churned. She'd called ahead. Damon had answered on the second ring, voice carefully neutral. I'll be in the lobby. Now, stepping out of the car into the cold, Mira felt like she was walking toward a cliff edge. The lobby was warm, decorated with tasteful garland and a modest tree. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace. And there, sitting in a leather armchair near the window, was Damon. He stood when he saw her. They stared at each other across the room, and for a moment, neither moved. Then Mira walked over, jaw set, and sat in the chair across from him. Thank you for coming, Damon said quietly. I'm not here for you, Mira replied. I'm here for Lena. He nodded. Fair. Silence stretched between them, heavy and fragile. Finally, Mira spoke. You said they were going to kill me. Who's they? Damon's jaw tightened. People I used to work for. People who built their fortunes on fear and violence. I was part of that world for a long time, Mira. Longer than I should have been. And when I tried to leave, when I met you and realized I wanted something different, they didn't take it well. So you left me to save me. Yes. And you thought breaking my heart was kinder than telling me the truth. I thought if you hated me, you'd move on, be safe, find someone better. Mira laughed, bitter and sharp. How'd that work out? Damon flinched. I know I hurt you. I know I can't undo that. But I need you to understand, I didn't have a choice. They had photos of you, knew your schedule, knew where you worked, where you lived. They told me if I didn't end it cleanly, they'd make you disappear. And they weren't bluffing. So you sacrificed us. I sacrificed myself. His voice cracked just slightly. I gave up the only thing that ever mattered to keep you alive. Mira's throat burned. You don't get credit for that. You don't get to paint yourself as some tragic hero. You made a choice. Maybe it was the right one. Maybe it wasn't. But you made it without me. And that's the part I can't forgive. Damon nodded slowly. I understand. Do you? Mira leaned forward, eyes blazing. Do you understand what it was like to watch you walk away? To rebuild myself from nothing while pregnant and alone? To explain to a 9-year-old why she doesn't have a father? No, Damon said quietly. I don't. But I want to try. Mira sat back, crossing her arms. Lena asked about you last night. Something flickered in Damon's eyes. Hope, maybe, or fear. What did you tell her? The truth. That you exist. That you weren't around. That it's complicated. Mira paused. She wants to meet you eventually, but she has conditions. Anything. You don't get to waltz in and play father. You don't get to buy her love with presents or promises. You show up, you listen, you prove you're not going to disappear again. And if you hurt her, if you so much as make her cry, I will end you. Are we clear? Crystal. Mira studied him, searching for cracks in his composure. But all she saw was exhaustion and something that looked unsettlingly like sincerity. Tell me what you've been doing for the past 10 years, she said. And don't lie. I'll know. Damon exhaled slowly. After the divorce, I cooperated with federal investigators. Gave them names, locations, evidence, helped them dismantle the organization from the inside. It took years. I lost friends, made enemies, nearly died twice. He gestured to the scar above his eyebrow. This was a reminder to keep my mouth shut. Didn't work. And now? Now I'm clean. Legitimate business, new identity, no ties to the old world. I've been rebuilding, trying to be the person I should have been when I met you. Why come back now? Because I'm tired of running, and because... He hesitated. Because I saw a photo of Lena. She was playing violin at a school concert. Someone posted it online, and I knew. I just knew. Mira's chest tightened. She looks like you. She has your eyes. They sat in silence, the weight of 10 years pressing down on them. Finally, Mira stood. I'll think about it. But I'm not making any promises. If I decide to let you meet her, it'll be on my terms, my rules, my timeline. Understood. Mira turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. If you're lying, if any of this is a game, I will make sure you regret it. I'm not the same person you left behind, Damon. I'm stronger now, and I won't let you break me again. I know, Damon said softly. That's what I'm counting on. Mira walked out without looking back, and this time she didn't tremble. She drove home, picked up Lena, made hot chocolate, and let her daughter chatter about the playdate while Christmas lights twinkled in the window. And late that night, after Lena was asleep, Mira pulled out her phone and sent a single text to the number on Damon's card. 1 meeting, neutral location. I'll let you know when. The reply came 30 seconds later. Thank you. Mira stared at the screen, then deleted the thread and went to bed. She still didn't sleep. But for the first time in 10 years, it wasn't because she was afraid. It was because she was making a choice. And this time, She was in control. 3 days passed before Mira sent the address. She chose the old bookshop on Maple Street, the one that had been sitting empty for 2 years, windows dusty and a faded for lease sign crooked in the door. It wasn't neutral, exactly. Nothing in this town could be truly neutral when every street corner held some ghost of her past, but it was public enough to feel safe and private enough to have a conversation that might get loud. Mira arrived 15 minutes early, parking across the street where she could watch the entrance. Lena sat in the passenger seat, bundled in her purple winter coat, nervously picking at the zipper. "What if he's weird?" Lena asked for the 3rd time. "Then we leave. What if he doesn't like me?" "Impossible." "What if I don't like him?" Mira looked at her daughter, this fierce little person who somehow managed to be brave and terrified in the same breath. "Then you don't have to see him again. This is your choice, Lena. Always." Lena nodded, but her fingers kept working the zipper up and down, metal teeth clicking softly. At exactly 2 o'clock, a black sedan pulled up in front of the bookshop. Damon got out, wearing dark jeans and a charcoal sweater under his coat. He looked around once, spotted Mira's car, and stood there, waiting. "That's him," Mira said quietly. Lena leaned forward, squinting through the windshield. "He's tall." "Yeah." "Does he know I play violin?" "I didn't tell him, but he might have found out on his own." Mira had learned from their conversation at the inn that Damon's version of keeping tabs was more thorough than she'd wanted to believe. The thought still made her skin crawl, but she'd chosen not to weaponize it. Not yet. "Okay." Lena took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders. "I'm ready." They got out of the car together, and Mira held Lena's hand as they crossed the street. Damon didn't move, didn't smile, didn't do anything except watch them approach with an expression Mira couldn't quite read. When they were 10 feet away, Lena stopped. Damon stopped breathing. For a moment, nobody spoke. The wind kicked up, scattering old leaves across the sidewalk, and somewhere down the block a dog barked. Mira felt Lena's hand tighten in hers. "Hi," Lena said finally, voice small but steady. "Hi." Damon's voice cracked. He cleared his throat, tried again. "I'm Damon." "I know. I'm Lena." "I know." Silence dropped between them like a stone into water. Lena tilted her head, studying him with the same unsettling intensity she used when dissecting new music. "You have a scar." Damon touched his eyebrow reflexively. "Yeah, old mistake." "Did it hurt?" "At the time." "Does it still?" "Not really." Lena seemed to accept this. She let go of Mira's hand, took 2 steps closer. "Mama says you used to know each other." "We did." "And then you didn't." "Yeah. But now you want to know me." Damon's jaw worked. "If you'll let me." Lena considered this, rocking back on her heels. "I have rules." "Okay." "You can't buy me stuff to make me like you. That's fake." "Agreed." "You have to be nice to my mama. She's been through a lot because of you." Damon flinched, but nodded. "Understood." "And you have to show up. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. No excuses. Deal." Lena crossed her arms, looking far older than 9. "Okay, but I'm watching you. And if you mess up, you're out. Got it?" "Got it." Mira stood frozen, watching her daughter negotiate with a man who'd once commanded rooms full of dangerous people with a single look. And he was letting her, actually listening, taking her seriously, treating her like an equal. It was unsettling and mesmerizing in equal measure. "So what now?" Lena asked, glancing at Mira. "Now we talk," Mira said, "inside where it's warmer." Damon pulled out a key, unlocked the bookshop door. It creaked open, revealing a dusty interior with empty shelves and a counter that had seen better decades. The floor was scarred hardwood, the walls a faded cream, and weak winter sunlight filtered through grimy windows. "I leased it yesterday," Damon said, flipping a light switch. Overhead bulbs flickered to life. "Figured we could use somewhere that wasn't anyone's territory." "Well, what are you going to do with it?" Lena asked, wandering inside and running her finger along a shelf, leaving a trail in the dust. "Thinking about turning it into a bookshop. Actual books this time, not a front for something else." Mira raised an eyebrow. "You hate reading." I hate fiction, Damon corrected. History's fine, biographies, technical manuals. Boring stuff, Lena declared, wrinkling her nose. Useful stuff. Same thing. Damon's mouth twitched. Almost a smile, but not quite. What do you like to read? Fantasy, adventure. Stories where people go on quests and fight dragons and discover they're secretly magical. No dragons here, Damon said. Just used shelves and a lot of work. Lena shrugged. That's okay. I can imagine the dragons. Mira watched them circle each other, Lena's curiosity battling her caution, Damon's carefully controlled body language screaming restraint. He wanted to reach out, she realized. Wanted to close the distance. But he was holding himself back, letting Lena set the pace. Smart. Or maybe just desperate not to screw this up. Can I ask you a question? Lena said suddenly, spinning to face Damon. Anything. Why did you leave my mama? The air went sharp and cold. Damon looked at Mira. She looked back, expression neutral. This was his test, and she wasn't going to save him. I left because I thought it would keep her safe, Damon said carefully, gaze dropping to Lena. People I used to work with were dangerous. They wanted to hurt me by hurting her, so I made her believe I didn't care, and I walked away. That's stupid, Lena said flatly. Yeah, it was. You should have just told her the truth. I know. Adults always think they're protecting people by lying, but lying just makes things worse. Damon exhaled slowly. You're right. I know I am. Lena crossed her arms. So if you're going to be around now, no more lying, even if you think it's for a good reason. No more lying, Damon agreed. Good. Lena wandered over to the window, peering out at the street. This place is kind of sad. Yeah. But it could be cool, if you fix it up. That's the plan. Can I help? Damon glanced at Mira again, and she gave the tiniest nod. If your mom says it's okay, then yeah, you can help. Lena's face lit up, and Mira's chest tightened. It was just a bookshop, just an afternoon, but watching her daughter's guard start to lower, seeing the tentative hope creeping into her expression, it felt dangerous, because hope could be weaponized, and Mira wasn't sure she trusted Damon not to break it. The first hour was stiff and awkward. Damon showed them around the space, pointing out the water damage in one corner, the electrical outlets that didn't work, the shelves that would need reinforcing. Lena asked 1,000 questions, some practical, some absurd, and Damon answered each one with the kind of patience Mira hadn't known he possessed. When Lena asked if they could put a reading nook in the corner with pillows and fairy lights, Damon said yes without hesitation. When she asked if the store could have a cat, he said he'd think about it. When she asked what his favorite book was, he paused for a long time before admitting he didn't have one. That's tragic, Lena announced. We have to fix that. How? I'll make you a list. You have to read at least 3 and tell me which one you like best. Deal. Mira leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching this bizarre negotiation unfold. Damon was trying so hard it was almost painful, and Lena, for all her rules and conditions, was starting to soften, just slightly, just enough to be terrifying. Can we get lunch? Lena asked eventually, flopping dramatically onto the dusty floor. I'm starving. There's a diner 2 blocks over, Mira said. If that's okay with everyone. Damon nodded. I'll drive. We'll follow you, Mira corrected. Separate cars. He didn't argue. The diner was one of those timeless places that looked exactly the same as it had 20 years ago. Red vinyl booths, checkered floors, a jukebox in the corner that still played actual records. They slid into a booth near the window, Lena on Mira's side, Damon across from them. A waitress with gray hair and a name tag that said Dolores appeared with menus and coffee. What can I get you folks? Grilled cheese and fries, Lena said immediately. Cobb salad, Mira added. Damon glanced at the menu briefly. Burger, medium rare. Dolores scribbled the order, refilled Mira's coffee without asking, and disappeared. Lena pulled out a small notebook from her coat pocket and a pencil. Okay, I'm making your reading list. Right now? Damon asked. You said you'd read 3 books. I'm holding you to it. Fair enough. Lena wrote in careful, looping handwriting, tongue poking out in concentration. Mira sipped her coffee and tried not to stare at Damon, who was watching Lena like she might vanish if he blinked. Done. Lena tore out the page and slid it across the table. These are my top 3. You have to read them in order and tell me what you think. Damon picked up the paper, read the titles. These are kids' books. So, they're good. I'm 42. And good stories don't have age limits. Mira bit back a smile. She's got you there. Damon folded the paper carefully and tucked it into his wallet. Okay, I'll read them. Promise? Promise. Lena looked satisfied. She pulled out colored pencils and started sketching on a fresh page, humming tunelessly. The food arrived and they ate in relative silence. Lena demolished her grilled cheese, stole 3 of Mira's tomatoes, and convinced Damon to share his fries. Mira watched them fall into an easy rhythm. Lena chattering about school, her friends, the upcoming recital, and Damon listening with the focus of someone trying to memorize every word. Do you play any instruments? Lena asked around a mouthful of fries. No? Can you sing? Badly, Lena giggled. Mama says everyone can sing, just not everyone should do it in public. Your mama's smart. I know. Lena beamed at Mira, then turned back to Damon. What do you do, like for work? Right now, I consult. Help businesses clean up their operations, make them more efficient. That sounds boring. It is. Then why do you do it? Damon paused, choosing his words carefully. Because I used to do work that was exciting and dangerous and wrong. Now I'm trying to do work that's boring and safe and right. Lena absorbed this, nodding slowly. That makes sense. Mama says growing up is about making better choices, even when they're harder. Your mama's right. She usually is. Mira's throat tightened. She wanted to interrupt, redirect, build walls between her daughter and this man who'd once destroyed her. But Lena was happy, relaxed, laughing at Damon's dry humor and asking questions without fear. And Mira realized with a sinking feeling that she couldn't protect Lena from this. Because Lena didn't want to be protected. She wanted to know her father. After lunch, they returned to the bookshop. Damon had brought cleaning supplies, and Lena threw herself into scrubbing shelves with the enthusiasm of someone who'd never had to clean professionally. Mira worked on the windows, wiping away years of grime while Damon tackled the floor. They didn't talk much, just worked, the silence comfortable in a way that surprised Mira. At one point, Lena disappeared into what used to be the back office and emerged with an old ledger, pages yellowed and brittle. Look! She held it up triumphantly. It's from 1987. Someone kept records of every book they sold. Damon crossed the room, peering over her shoulder. That's detailed. It's beautiful. Lena traced a finger down the columns. They wrote little notes next to some of the titles, like Mrs. Chen Loves Mysteries and Tommy's Birthday Gift. Personal touches, Mira said softly. That's how you build loyalty. Can we do that? Lena looked up at Damon. When you open the store, can we keep records like this? If you want, I do. It makes it feel like the books matter, like they're going to people who care. Damon crouched down to Lena's level. You're right. That's exactly what we should do. Lena grinned, and for a second Mira saw Damon's smile reflected in her daughter's face, the same sharp edge, the same intensity. It was like looking at a photograph that had been torn in half and suddenly pieced back together. They stayed until the light started fading, until Lena's energy finally flagged, and she yawned 3 times in 5 minutes. Time to go, Mira announced, setting down her rag. Lena protested weakly, but she was drooping, exhaustion catching up. Damon walked them to the door. Thank you, he said quietly, looking at Mira. For this. Don't thank me yet. We're not done figuring this out. I know. Mira ushered Lena out into the cold, and they were halfway to the car when Lena stopped and turned back. Hey, Damon? He was still standing in the doorway. Yeah? Same time next week? Something shifted in his expression, relief, maybe, or gratitude so raw it hurt to look at. Same time next week. Lena nodded, satisfied, and climbed into the car. Mira drove home in silence, stealing glances at her daughter in the rear-view mirror. Lena stared out the window, face unreadable. You okay? Mira asked finally. Yeah, Lena paused. He's not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone scarier, or meaner, Or someone who'd try to pretend the bad stuff didn't happen. Lena traced patterns on the foggy window. But he didn't do that. He just answered my questions. Is that good or bad? I think it's good. Lena glanced at Mira. Are you okay? The question caught Mira off guard. Why do you ask? Because he hurt you. And now he's here, and you're letting me spend time with him. That must be hard. Mira's chest tightened. It is. But you're more important than my feelings. That's not true. Lena's voice was fierce. Your feelings matter too, and if this is too hard, we can stop. Do you want to stop? Lena considered this. No, but I don't want you to be sad either. Mira reached over, squeezed Lena's hand. I'm not sad. I'm careful. There's a difference. Okay? Lena squeezed back. But if you change your mind, tell me. Promise? Promise. That night, after Lena was asleep, Mira sat at the kitchen table with a glass of wine and her phone. She stared at Damon's number for a long time before typing out a message. She liked you. Don't make me regret this. His response came 2 minutes later. I won't. Mira wanted to believe him, but belief required trust, and trust required proof. So she set the phone down, finished her wine, and went to bed. And for the first time in weeks, she slept through the night. The following Tuesday, Mira received a package. It arrived at the school, delivered during her lunch break. Brown paper wrapping, no return address, just her name written in precise black ink. She opened it in the teacher's lounge, pulling out 3 children's books, the exact titles Lena had written on her list. Tucked inside the first one was a note on plain white paper. Started reading. You were right. Good stories don't have age limits. Thank you for giving me a chance. Mira stared at the note for a long time, something uncomfortable twisting in her chest. He was trying, actually trying. And she didn't know what to do with that. The weeks began to develop a rhythm. Every Saturday, they met at the bookshop. Damon worked on repairs, Mira handled design decisions, and Lena flitted between them like a hummingbird, asking questions, offering opinions, sketching plans for the reading nook she'd claimed as her personal project. Slowly, the space transformed. Shelves were sanded and restained. The floor was refinished. The electrical outlets were fixed. Damon hired a painter, and Lena helped choose the color, a warm cream with deep green accents. And every week, Damon showed up. He kept his promises. He listened when Lena talked. He deferred to Mira on decisions involving their daughter. He didn't push, didn't demand, didn't overstep. It was disarming. One Saturday in late January, Lena convinced them to take a break and get hot chocolate from the cafe down the street. They walked together, Lena between them, chattering about the book she'd just finished. And then the dragon turned out to be the princess's mother the whole time. Can you believe that? Plot twist, Damon said. The best plot twist. Lena looked up at him. Did you finish the second book yet? Last night. And? It was good. Sad ending, though. The best stories have sad parts. That's what makes the happy parts matter. Damon glanced at Mira over Lena's head, and something passed between them, an understanding maybe, or a shared recognition of just how extraordinary their daughter was. At the cafe, they ordered drinks and claimed a corner table. Lena pulled out her sketchbook and started drawing while Mira and Damon sat in companionable silence. She's amazing, Damon said quietly. I know. You did that. You raised her to be fearless and kind and smart. Mira's throat tightened. I had help. Teachers, neighbors, friends. But mostly you. Yeah, mostly me. Damon's jaw worked. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I know. Does it help, knowing I'm sorry? Mira considered this. A little, but sorry doesn't erase 10 years. I know. They fell silent again, watching Lena sketch. She was drawing the bookshop, Mira realized, complete with the reading nook, imaginary shelves full of books, and a small cat curled up in the window. She drew a cat, Damon noted. She's relentless when she wants something. Wonder where she gets that, Mira snorted. Definitely not from me. Right, you're famously easygoing. I am a delight. You're terrifying. Good. Someone has to keep you in line. Damon's mouth twitched. Mission accomplished. It was the closest they'd come to actual banter, and Mira felt something shift, a slight thaw in the permafrost that had surrounded her heart for a decade. Dangerous, but also nice. Later that night, after Lena was in bed, Mira's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Damon. Saved your number from the hospital paperwork. Lena's emergency contact form. Long story, I'll explain. I know we're keeping things formal, but I wanted to say thank you for today, for every day. I know I don't deserve this, but I'm grateful anyway." Mira stared at the message, fingers hovering over the keyboard. She could ignore it, should ignore it probably. Instead, she typed, "You went through Lena's school paperwork? The bookshop needs an emergency contact. She listed you. I may have memorized the number. That's creepy." "I know. Sorry." Mira bit her lip. "Stop apologizing. Can't help it. I have a lot to apologize for." "Then make a list. Get it out of your system, and then move on." A pause. Then, "Already did. List is 47 items long." Despite herself, Mira smiled. "Of course it is. I'm very thorough. I remember." Another pause. Longer this time. "I'll let you go. But thank you. For everything." Mira set the phone down without responding, but she didn't delete his number. And when she went to bed, she fell asleep thinking about the way he'd looked at Lena in the cafe, like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. February arrived cold and bitter. The bookshop was nearly finished, and Damon had started ordering inventory, carefully curated selections based on Lena's recommendations and Mira's input. The reading nook was complete, outfitted with oversized pillows, string lights, and a small bookshelf just for children's titles. Lena had claimed it immediately, declaring it her official headquarters. One Saturday, while Mira was organizing the front counter and Lena was arranging books by color in her nook, Damon approached with a folder. "I need to tell you something," he said quietly. Mira looked up, instantly alert. "What?" "I'm testifying, next month, federal case against some of the people I used to work with. It's the last piece. After this, I'm done." Mira's stomach dropped. "Is it dangerous?" "It could be. That's why I'm telling you now. In case something happens, I want you to know." "Don't!" Mira's voice was sharp. "Don't do the noble sacrifice speech. If this is dangerous, you need protection, lawyers, security." "I have all that." "Then why tell me?" "Because if something goes wrong, I need you to know I didn't disappear by choice. Not this time." Damon glanced at Lena, who was absorbed in her work. "And I need you to tell her I tried, that I wanted to be here." Mira's hands clenched. "You're not going to die." "Probably not, but I've learned not to make promises I can't keep." "Then don't testify." "I have to. It's the only way to make sure they can't come after you or Lena. Once they're locked up, it's over. We're free." Mira wanted to scream at him, wanted to tell him that freedom wasn't worth his life, that Lena needed him, that she stopped herself, because she couldn't finish that thought. Not yet. "When?" she asked instead. "March 15th. That's 6 weeks. "Yeah." "And after?" "After. I come back, if they'll have me." Mira looked at him, really looked, and saw the truth. He was scared, not of testifying, but of losing this, losing them. "We'll be here," she said quietly, "but you better come back." "I will." "Promise me." Damon held her gaze. "I promise." And for the first time, Mira believed him. The last week of February hit like a fist. Temperatures dropped below zero, pipes froze across town, and the school district called 2 snow days in a row. Mira spent those days at home with Lena, baking cookies they didn't need and watching movies they'd already seen, trying to ignore the knot of anxiety that had taken up residence in her chest. March 15th was 17 days away. She hadn't told Lena about the testimony. Damon had asked her not to, said there was no point worrying a 9-year-old about things she couldn't control. Mira had agreed, but the secret sat heavy in her stomach, turning every conversation with her daughter into a minefield. On the 3rd day of being snowed in, Lena looked up from her hot chocolate and said, "Something's wrong with Damon." Mira's hand froze halfway to her coffee mug. "What makes you say that?" "He's been texting me more. Like, a lot more. And the messages are weird." Weird how?" Lena pulled out her phone, scrolled through. "Look, make sure you practice your scales every day, even when you don't feel like it. And
Your mom is the strongest person I've ever met. Don't forget that. And this morning he sent me a whole paragraph about finishing what you start and keeping promises. Mira's throat tightened. Maybe he's just being encouraging. Mama, Lena fixed her with that unnervingly direct stare. I'm 9, not stupid. Is he sick? No.
Is he leaving? No, he's just dealing with some work stuff. It's complicated. Lena set down her phone, crossed her arms. You're doing the thing again, where you protect me by not telling me the truth. Mira exhaled slowly. You're right. I'm sorry. So what's actually happening? There was no good way to do this, no script that made it easier. Mira set down her coffee, turned to face Lena fully. Damon has to testify in a court case next month. It's related to his old life, the dangerous work he used to do. He's helping put some bad people in prison. Lena processed this, her expression cycling through confusion, fear, and then something that looked almost like pride. That's brave. It is. But it's also dangerous. It could be. He has protection, though. Lawyers, security. He's being careful. Is that why he's texting me all that stuff? Because he's scared he won't come back? Mira wanted to lie. Wanted to smooth it over, make it smaller, less frightening. But Lena had asked for truth, and she deserved it. Yeah, I think he's trying to say things he might not get another chance to say. Lena was quiet for a long moment, staring into her hot chocolate. Then she stood abruptly, grabbed her phone, and walked to her room. Mira let her go. Sometimes people needed space to process, even 9-year-olds. 20 minutes later, Lena emerged with red eyes and a determined expression. I want to see him, she said. We're seeing him Saturday, at the bookshop. No, I mean now, today, before he has to go testify. Lena, the roads are terrible. We're not supposed to drive unless it's an emergency. This is an emergency. Mira looked at her daughter, at the fear and fierce determination warring in her small face, and made a decision. Get your coat. The drive to Damon's apartment took 40 minutes instead of the usual 15. The roads were slick with black ice, and twice Mira's tires lost traction on turns. But she drove carefully, knuckles white on the steering wheel, and eventually they pulled up in front of a modest building on the east side of town. Mira had never been here, didn't know where Damon lived, had never asked. But he'd included the address on Lena's emergency contact form, and Mira had memorized it without meaning to. They climbed out of the car, boots crunching on frozen snow, and Lena led the way to the front door like she'd done this 1,000 times. How do you know which apartment? Mira asked. He told me, 3B, 3rd floor. Of course he had. They climbed 3 flights of narrow stairs, and Lena knocked on the door marked 3B. Hard, insistent. Footsteps. A pause. Then the door swung open, and Damon stood there in sweatpants and an old t-shirt, hair disheveled, barefoot. He stared at them like they were hallucinations. What are you doing here? Can we come in? Lena asked, already pushing past him. Damon stepped aside automatically, looking at Mira with a question in his eyes. She just shrugged, following Lena inside. The apartment was small and sparse. A couch, a coffee table stacked with books, a kitchen barely big enough for one person. No art on the walls, no personal touches. It looked like a place someone stayed temporarily, not somewhere they lived. Lena planted herself in the middle of the living room, hands on her hips. You're being dramatic, she announced. Damon blinked. Excuse me? All those texts about keeping promises and being strong and finishing what you start. You're acting like you're going to die. I'm not going to die. Then stop texting me like you are. It's freaking me out. Damon's expression shifted, surprise, then something almost like shame. I didn't mean to scare you. Well, you did, and Mama says you're testifying against bad people, which is brave but also dangerous, and I decided I'm not okay with you doing that without telling me yourself. Damon glanced at Mira, who leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. She has a point, Mira said. You can't send cryptic messages and expect a kid not to panic. I wasn't trying to be cryptic. I was trying to... He stopped, rubbed his face. I don't know what I was trying to do. You were trying to say goodbye, Lena said quietly. Just in case. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bones. Damon crouched down, meeting Lena's eyes. You're right, I was, but not because I think I'm going to die, because I've learned that life is unpredictable, and I don't want to leave things unsaid. So say them now, while I'm here." Damon took a breath, and Mira watched something crack open in his chest. "Okay, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of how smart you are, how brave, how kind. I'm proud that you stood up to me that first day and set rules. I'm proud that you call me out when I'm being stupid. And I'm grateful, so grateful, that you gave me a chance when you had every reason not to." Lena's chin trembled. "Are you coming back?" "Yes." "Promise?" "Promise." "Okay." Lena launched herself at him, wrapping her arms around his neck. "You better, because I already started planning your birthday party, and it's going to be epic." Damon's arms came up slowly, carefully, like he was afraid she might break. He held her like she was made of glass and starlight, and when he closed his eyes, Mira saw a tear slide down his cheek. She looked away, giving them privacy, and walked to the window. Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in white. When she turned back, Damon and Lena were sitting on the floor, Lena talking a mile a minute about her party plans, and Damon listening with the kind of focus that made Mira's chest ache. She'd spent 10 years hating this man, 10 years building walls, protecting herself, making sure he could never hurt her again. But watching him with their daughter, seeing the way he looked at Lena like she'd hung the moon and the stars, Mira felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of it. They stayed for 2 hours. Damon made grilled cheese for lunch, and Lena convinced him to show her his book collection. He had an entire shelf dedicated to the titles she'd recommended, each one dog-eared and annotated. "You actually read them," Lena said, sounding awed. "I promised I would." "Yeah, but adults break promises all the time." "Not this one." Lena pulled out the first book, flipped through the pages. Damon had made notes in the margins, observations, questions, small sketches. "You drew the dragon," Lena said, pointing to a rough pencil sketch. "Tried to. Not very good at it. It's perfect." When it was time to leave, Lena hugged Damon again, made him promise one more time to come back, and then skipped down the stairs like she hadn't just spent the last 2 hours confronting mortality. Mira lingered in the doorway. "Thank you," Damon said quietly, "for bringing her. She needed to see you, to hear it from you." "And you?" Mira met his gaze. "I needed to see you too, to make sure you understand what you're risking." "I understand." "Do you?" "Because that little girl in there just started trusting you, and if you don't come back, if something happens, it'll destroy her." "I know." "And me." The words slipped out before Mira could stop them. "It'll destroy me too." Damon went very still. "Mira, don't." She held up a hand. "Don't say anything. Just come back. That's all I'm asking." "I will." Mira nodded, turned to leave, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing, testifying, finishing it." "That's worth a lot," Damon said softly. Mira walked away before she could say anything else, before the words building in her chest could escape and ruin everything. The drive home was quiet. Lena fell asleep at the passenger seat, head tilted against the window, and Mira drove through the snow with her thoughts tangled and sharp. She was starting to care again, starting to hope, and that terrified her more than anything. March arrived with unseasonable warmth. The snow melted, streets turned to slush, and the bookshop's grand opening was set for March 20th, 5 days after Damon's testimony. Lena threw herself into preparations, designing flyers and convincing local businesses to display them. Damon worked longer hours, finalizing inventory and setting up the register system. And Mira found herself at the shop more often than not, organizing shelves and pretending she wasn't counting down the days. 12 days until testimony. 10 days. 7. On March 10th, Damon called a meeting at the bookshop. Mira and Lena arrived to find him standing behind the counter, looking more serious than she'd ever seen him. "I need to go away for a few days," he said without preamble. "Prep meetings with the lawyers, security briefings. I leave tomorrow." Lena's face fell. "How long?" 4 days. I'll be back the night before I testify." "That's cutting it close." "I know, but I wanted to see you both before I left. And I wanted to give you this." He pulled out a set of keys, slid them across the counter to Mira. "These are for the shop. If something happens, if I don't come back, it's yours. Both of you. The lease is paid through the end of the year, and there's enough in the business account to keep it running for at least 6 months. Mira stared at the keys. You're not going to need a backup plan. Probably not, but I want you to have them anyway. This is too much. It's not enough. It'll never be enough. Damon's voice cracked slightly. But it's what I have to give. Lena grabbed the keys, held them tight. You're coming back, so we're just going to hold on to these until you do, and then you can open the shop yourself. Deal? Deal. They spent the rest of the afternoon together, not talking about the testimony or the risks or the uncertainty, just working side by side, putting final touches on the displays, arranging the reading nook, testing the lights. At closing time, Lena hugged Damon and made him pinky swear to text her every day he was gone. Every day, she insisted, even if it's just an emoji. Even if it's just an emoji, Damon agreed. Then it was Mira and Damon alone in the shop, the lights dim, the street outside quiet. I don't know how to do this, Mira said finally. Do what? Watch you leave. Again. Damon stepped closer, stopped just short of touching her. It's different this time. Is it? Last time I left because I was a coward who thought sacrifice meant silence. This time I'm leaving because I'm trying to be brave enough to finish what I started, so we can have a future. All of us. Mira looked up at him, and the distance between them felt impossibly small and infinitely wide at the same time. If you don't come back, I will. You can't promise that. Watch me. And then, before Mira could stop herself, she reached up and pulled him down into a kiss. It was brief, desperate, tasting like fear and hope, and 10 years of unfinished business. When she pulled back, Damon looked stunned. What was that for? He asked, voice rough. Insurance. So you have something to come back to. Mira, go, before I change my mind about letting you. Damon hesitated, then nodded. He grabbed his coat, headed for the door, and paused with his hand on the handle. I love you. I never stopped. Mira's breath caught, but before she could respond, he was gone. She stood alone in the bookshop, fingers pressed to her lips, and wondered what the hell she'd just done. The next 4 days crawled by like wounded animals. Damon texted Lena every morning, sometimes just a thumbs-up emoji, sometimes a photo of terrible hotel coffee. Once, a blurry picture of a lawyer's conference room with the caption, "Very exciting stuff." Lena responded with updates about school, sketches of the bookshop, and increasingly creative threats about what would happen if he didn't come back. Mira didn't text him at all. She wanted to. Wanted to check in, make sure he was okay, ask if the lawyers were confident. But every time she picked up her phone, the words wouldn't come. Because texting felt too casual for what was happening between them, and calling felt too intimate. So she said nothing and hated herself for it. On March 14th, the night before the testimony, Mira's phone rang at 11 p.m. Damon? She answered on the third ring. You're supposed to be sleeping. Can't. Nervous? Terrified. Mira pulled her blanket tighter around her shoulders. You're going to be fine. You don't know that. I know you. You don't run from things anymore. I ran from you for 10 years, and you came back. That's what matters. Silence on the line, heavy with things unsaid. About the other night, Damon started. When you... Don't. Not now. We can talk about it when you get back. Okay. He sounded relieved. Okay. They stayed on the line for another minute, neither speaking, just breathing together across the distance. I should let you go, Damon said finally. Yeah. Mira? Yeah? Thank you. For everything. Come back, she whispered. That's all the thanks I need. I will. The line went dead, and Mira sat in the dark, phone clutched in her hand, and prayed to whatever might be listening. March 15th arrived gray and cold. Mira sent Lena to school, then called in sick to work. She couldn't teach, couldn't focus, couldn't do anything except pace her living room and check her phone every 3 minutes. Damon had said the testimony would start at 9. It was now 9:47. No messages, no updates. Mira made coffee, didn't drink it. Turned on the TV, turned it off. Started cleaning the kitchen, gave up halfway through. At 10:30, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her heart stopped. She answered, voice shaking. Hello? Ms. Halden? This is Agent Ross with the FBI. I'm calling about Damon Varga. Mira's knees gave out. She sank onto the floor, back against the cabinets. What happened? He's fine. The testimony went smoothly, but there was an incident after. Someone tried to approach him in the parking garage. Security intervened and Mr. Varga is unharmed, but we're keeping him in protective custody for the next 24 hours as a precaution. Can I talk to him? Not right now, but he asked me to call you, said to tell you he's okay and he'll be home tomorrow. Tomorrow? Yes, ma'am. Is there anything else you need? No, thank you. Mira ended the call and sat on the kitchen floor shaking. He was okay. Alive. Coming home. She let herself cry for exactly 5 minutes. Then she pulled herself together, splashed cold water on her face, and went to pick up Lena from school. Her daughter took one look at her and said, "Something happened. Damon's fine, but he has to stay away one more day. Security reasons." Lena absorbed this, nodded. "Okay, as long as he's safe." "He is." "Good." Lena paused. "Are you okay?" Mira managed to smile. "Yeah, baby, I'm okay." But that night, alone in her bed, Mira stared at the ceiling and admitted the truth. She was falling in love with him again. Maybe had never stopped. And that was the most terrifying thing of all. Damon came back on March 16th at 3 p.m., arriving at the bookshop in an unmarked sedan with tinted windows. Mira watched from across the street as he climbed out, spoke briefly with the driver, then stood on the sidewalk looking at the shop like he'd been gone for years instead of days. He looked exhausted, hollowed out. There was a bruise on his jaw that hadn't been there before, and his shoulders carried tension like a physical weight. Mira crossed the street before she could talk herself out of it. "You're late," she said. Damon turned, and something in his expression cracked when he saw her. "I know, security wanted to do one more sweep of the area. Agent Ross said someone tried to approach you." "It was nothing. They handled it. Don't do that. Don't minimize." Damon exhaled slowly. "Okay, it wasn't nothing, but I'm fine, and it's over. The people I testified against are going away for a long time. We're safe now." Mira wanted to believe him, wanted to accept that simple declaration and move on, but trust didn't work that way. Not for her. Not anymore. "Show me the bruise," she said. "It's nothing." "Show me." Damon tilted his head, letting the light catch the purple-green bloom along his jawline. "One of them got past security for about 10 seconds, threw a punch, missed everything important." Mira reached up without thinking, fingers hovering just shy of touching. "Does it hurt?" "Only when I talk, or breathe, or exist. So constantly." "Pretty much." They stood there, too close and not close enough. The space between them charged with everything they hadn't said. "Lena's going to lose her mind when she sees you," Mira said finally, dropping her hand. "Good lose her mind or bad?" "Both, probably. She's been planning your welcome home party for 3 days." "There's a party? You thought there wouldn't be?" Damon's mouth twitched. "I was hoping for low-key." "You have met our daughter, right?" The word slipped out before Mira could catch it. "Our daughter, not my daughter, not Lena." Our Damon heard it too. She saw the way his breathing changed, the way his eyes went bright and dangerous. "Say that again," he said quietly. "What?" "Our daughter." Mira's throat tightened. "That's what she is, isn't she?" Yeah, she is." Before either of them could say anything else, a car horn blared down the street. Mrs. Chen's ancient station wagon pulled up, and Lena burst out of the passenger side before the vehicle even came to a complete stop. "You're back!" She sprinted toward them, backpack bouncing, hair flying. "You're actually back!" Damon crouched down just in time to catch her, and Lena slammed into him hard enough to knock him back a step. He held on tight, face buried in her hair, and Mira saw his shoulders shake. Mrs. Chen approached more slowly, giving Mira a knowing look. "I picked her up from school like you asked. She's been vibrating since lunch." "Thank you," Mira said. "I owe you." "Nonsense, this is better than my soaps." Mrs. Chen patted Mira's arm, then headed back to her car. "I'll leave you 3 alone. Call if you need anything." The station wagon rattled away, and Lena finally pulled back from Damon, hands on his shoulders, scrutinizing him like a tiny inspector.
You have a bruise, she announced. I do. Did you win the fight? Wasn't much of a fight, more of a brief disagreement. Did you punch back? Security handled it. Lena seemed satisfied with this. Good, because I don't want you getting hurt. We have a bookshop to open. Speaking of which, Damon pulled the keys from his pocket, the ones he'd given Mira. I believe these are yours now. Nope. Lena pushed them back toward him. We're just holding them. You're opening this place yourself. That was the deal. Pretty sure the deal was I had to come back, which I did. The deal included you being alive and unbruised. You're alive, but definitely bruised. So we're renegotiating. Damon looked at Mira, eyebrows raised. Is she always like this? You have no idea, Mira said. I'm going to be a lawyer when I grow up, Lena declared, and I'm going to destroy people in court. I believe it. Lena grabbed Damon's hand and started pulling him toward the bookshop. Come on, we have so much to show you. Mom and I finished the mystery section, and we set up the register, and we tested all the lights, and the reading nook is perfect. They spent the next 2 hours inside the shop, Lena giving Damon a comprehensive tour of everything they'd accomplished in his absence. He listened to every word, asked questions, admired the displays, and looked at Mira over Lena's head with an expression that made her chest ache. When Lena finally ran out of steam, she flopped dramatically into the reading nook. Okay, now we can have the party. I thought this was the party, Damon said. This is the pre-party. The actual party is at our house. Mama made lasagna. Damon looked at Mira. You made lasagna? Don't sound so surprised. I can cook. I've had your cooking. It's terrifying. That was one time, and the smoke alarm was being dramatic. Lena giggled. She burned spaghetti. I didn't even know that was possible. In my defense, Mira said, I was distracted. By what? Lena asked. Work stuff. Lena looked between them, eyes narrowing. You're both being weird. We're always weird, Damon said. Weirder than usual. Mira grabbed her coat before Lena could ask more questions. Come on, lasagna is going to get cold. They drove separately, Mira and Lena in one car, Damon following in his sedan. Lena chattered the entire way home, talking about the bookshop opening, her upcoming recital, a test she'd aced. Normal things, kid things. And Mira let the words wash over her, grateful for the distraction from the chaos in her own head. Because she'd kissed Damon, had told him to come back, had called Lena their daughter, and now he was following them home, about to eat dinner at their table, and Mira had no idea what happened next. The lasagna was actually edible. Lena ate 2 servings, Damon ate 3, and Mira picked at hers while watching them fall into an easy rhythm of conversation. They talked about books, about the shop's opening day plans, about whether they should get a cat. We should definitely get a cat, Lena insisted. Every good bookshop has a cat. What if people are allergic? Damon asked. Then they can shop online. That's not very customer-friendly. The cat's happiness is more important than hypothetical allergies. Mira snorted. You can't actually believe that. I absolutely believe it. Cats are noble creatures who deserve respect. You've never even had a cat, which is why I need one now, to make up for lost time. Damon was trying not to smile, failing, but trying. We'll think about it. That's adult code for no. That's adult code for maybe, Lena pointed her fork at him. I'm holding you to that. After dinner, Lena insisted on showing Damon her room. Mira stayed in the kitchen, cleaning up, listening to their voices drift down the hallway. Lena explaining her drawings, her violin practice schedule, her collection of rocks from the schoolyard. Normal, domestic, terrifying. When they emerged 20 minutes later, Lena was yawning despite her best efforts to stay awake. Bedtime, Mira announced, but Damon just got here. And he'll be here tomorrow, and the day after, right? Mira looked at Damon, challenging him to contradict her. Right, he said quietly. I'm not going anywhere. Lena seemed satisfied with this. She hugged Damon goodnight, made him promise to come to her recital next week, then shuffled off to brush her teeth. And suddenly, Mira and Damon were alone in her living room, the air between them thick with unfinished conversations. I should go, Damon said, but he didn't move. You should, Mira agreed. Neither of them moved. About what you said before, Damon started. When you called her our daughter, I know what I said. Did you mean it? Mira looked at him, really looked, at the bruise on his jaw, the exhaustion in his eyes, the way he stood in her living room like he was afraid to take up too much space. Yeah, she said. I meant it. Damon's breath caught. Mira, but that doesn't mean I forgive you, or that I trust you completely, or that I'm ready to just pretend the last 10 years didn't happen. I know. I'm scared, she admitted. I'm scared you're going to leave again, or hurt her, or hurt me, and I don't know how to get past that. I don't know either, but I want to try, if you'll let me. Mira wrapped her arms around herself. I kissed you. I remember. I told you it was insurance, something for you to come back to. I know. That was a lie. The words tumbled out, raw and unfiltered. I kissed you because I wanted to, because I've been trying not to want to for months, and I'm tired of pretending. Well, Damon closed the distance between them in 2 steps. Mira, don't. She held up a hand, stopping him. Don't make this easier. Don't tell me it's okay or that you understand. I need to say this while I still can. He went still, waiting. I think I'm falling in love with you again, Mira said, voice shaking, and I hate it. I hate that you can still do this to me. I hate that I want you here. I hate that I'm terrified every time you leave because I don't know if you'll come back. I'll always come back. Can't promise that. I can. I will. Damon's voice was fierce. I spent 10 years running from the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm done running, Mira. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere unless you tell me to. Mira's eyes burned. What if I don't know what I want? Then we figure it out together. No more secrets, no more lies, just us trying to build something real. And if it doesn't work, then at least we tried. At least we gave it a real chance this time. Mira wanted to argue, wanted to protect herself, build walls, push him away before he could hurt her again. But she was so tired of being afraid, so tired of carrying this alone. Okay, she whispered. Okay? Okay, we try, but slowly and carefully. And if you hurt her, I won't. You can't know that. I can. Because she's the best thing I've ever helped create, and I'd rather die than hurt her. Mira believed him, and that was the most terrifying part. They stood there for a long moment, not touching, just existing in the same space. Then Damon stepped back, creating distance. I should go, let you get some sleep. Yeah. He headed for the door, stopped with his hand on the knob. The bookshop opens in 4 days. I know. Will you be there? Where else would I be? Damon smiled, small and genuine. Good night, Mira. Good night. He left, and Mira locked the door behind him, leaning against it for support. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was racing. And for the first time in a decade, she felt something other than fear. She felt hope. The next 4 days were a controlled chaos. Final preparations for the bookshop opening consumed every spare moment. Mira took a personal day from work to help with last-minute details, and Lena recruited half her class to make promotional posters. Damon worked 16-hour days, getting the register system operational, training the 2 part-time employees he'd hired, and obsessively rearranging displays. Mira watched him work with a kind of bemused affection, recognizing the perfectionism she'd once found charming and then infuriating. It's a bookshop, not a museum, she said on the 3rd day, finding him debating the placement of a display table for the 5th time. It needs to flow. People need to move through the space naturally. People will move however they want. Stop overthinking. I don't overthink. You absolutely overthink. You once spent 40 minutes deciding which coffee maker to buy. It was an important decision. It was a coffee maker. Damon shot her a look that was almost playful. Some of us appreciate quality. Some of us appreciate getting coffee before noon. Lena, who was organizing the children's section nearby, called out, "You two sound married." Both Damon and Mira froze. "We're not," Mira said quickly. "I know, but you bicker like you are." "We're just co-parenting," Damon supplied. "And business partners, sort of." "Right, that." Lena rolled her eyes. "Whatever you say." The night before the opening, Mira found herself alone in the bookshop at 10 p.m. doing a final walkthrough. Damon had gone to pick up the pastries they'd ordered for the event, and Lena was at home with Mrs. Chen, already asleep. The space looked good. Better than good. The shelves were full, the lights cast a warm glow, and the reading nook Lena had designed looked like something out of a magazine. It was a real business, a real accomplishment, and Damon had built it for them. The door chimed, and Mira turned to find him balancing 3 boxes of pastries and 2 coffee cups. "Thought you might still be here," he said, setting everything on the counter. "Couldn't sleep." "Me neither." He handed her a coffee. "Decaf. I remember you don't do caffeine after 6. Mira took it, surprised he'd remembered. "Thanks." They stood there, sipping coffee in comfortable silence, and Mira felt something settle in her chest. Not resolution exactly, but maybe the beginning of it. "I'm proud of you," she said quietly, "for building this, for seeing it through." Damon looked at her, and there was something vulnerable in his expression. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Sure you could have." "No, I needed this. Needed something to prove I could create instead of destroy. And I needed you to witness it, to see that I'm trying to be better." "You don't need to prove anything to me." "Yes, I do. You and Lena, you're everything. And I spent 10 years being the worst version of myself. So yeah, I need to prove I'm different now, that I'm worth the risk you're taking." Mira set down her coffee, crossed the space between them. She reached up, framing his face with her hands, feeling the roughness of his jaw beneath her palms. "You're worth it," she said. "Even when you're infuriating, even when I'm scared, you're worth it." Damon's eyes closed, and he leaned into her touch like a man starving for affection. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway." He laughed, soft and broken, and pulled her into a hug that felt like coming home. They stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other in the quiet bookshop, surrounded by stories waiting to be read. And Mira let herself believe just for a moment that maybe they could write their own ending, one that didn't involve goodbye. Opening day arrived bright and unseasonably warm. By 9 a.m., there was a line outside the bookshop. Local residents, curious strangers, parents with children, all waiting to see what Damon Varga had built. Lena stood at the door in her best dress, holding a pair of oversized scissors for the ribbon-cutting ceremony she'd insisted on. Damon stood beside her, looking overwhelmed and terrified and proud all at once. Mira hung back, camera in hand, capturing the moment. "Ready?" Lena asked. "As I'll ever be," Damon said. "Good. Because I wrote a speech." "Of course you did." Lena cleared her throat, projecting her voice like she was performing for a stadium instead of a crowd of 30. "Welcome to Halden and Varga Books. We're a family business dedicated to bringing stories to everyone. My mama always says books are how we understand each other, and She paused, glanced at Damon. "My dad built this place so we could share that with all of you, so thank you for being here. Now let's cut this ribbon and sell some books." Mira's breath caught on the word dad. She saw Damon's hand tremble as he helped Lena cut the ribbon, saw the way he blinked rapidly like he was fighting tears. The crowd applauded and the doors opened, and suddenly the shop was full of people browsing shelves and asking questions and buying books. It was chaos. Beautiful, messy chaos. Mira worked the register, Damon handled recommendations, and Lena appointed herself official tour guide, showing everyone the reading nook and explaining the organizational system she'd helped design. By noon, they'd sold 60 books. By 3 p.m., over 100. And by closing time, the shelves looked noticeably emptier. When the last customer left, Lena collapsed dramatically in the reading nook. "I'm exhausted." "You did great," Damon said, locking the door. "We all did great." Lena looked at Mira. "Right, Mama?" "Right. So does this mean we're keeping the bookshop?" Damon laughed. "Yeah, we're keeping it." "Good, because I already told my friends this is where they should buy all their books." "Aggressive marketing. I like it." Lena yawned, snuggling deeper into the pillows. "Can we just stay here tonight? I don't want to move." "We have to go home eventually," Mira said. "But not yet. Just a little longer." So they stayed. Mira and Damon sat on the floor near the reading nook, backs against the wall, while Lena dozed between them. The shop was quiet except for the occasional creak of old wood and the hum of the refrigerator in the back room. "She called me Dad,"
Damon said softly. I heard. I didn't expect. She loves you, even when she's trying not to. I love her too, so much it scares me. Mira looked at him. Good. Love should be a little scary. Is that what this is? Between us? I don't know. Maybe. I'll take maybe. They sat in silence, shoulders touching, and Mira let herself imagine a future where this was normal, where they were a family, messy and complicated and real. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was close. Spring arrived with a vengeance. The bookshop settled into a rhythm, busy weekends, steady weekday traffic, and Lena spending every afternoon after school organizing shelves and interrogating customers about their reading preferences. Damon hired a college student named Maya to help with the register, and the shop became a fixture in the neighborhood, the kind of place people stopped by just to browse. But beneath the routine, tension simmered between Mira and Damon. They worked together efficiently, co-parented smoothly, and maintained careful boundaries that were starting to feel more like walls. They hadn't talked about the kiss, or the almost confessions, or what happened next, and Mira was starting to realize that avoiding the conversation was its own kind of cowardice. 3 weeks after the opening, Lena's spring recital loomed. She'd been practicing obsessively, her violin case a permanent fixture on the kitchen table. The piece she'd chosen was complicated, something about lost love and redemption that made Mira's chest tight every time she heard it. It's too advanced, Mira said one evening, listening to Lena struggle through a particularly difficult passage. That's why I'm practicing. But what if you're not ready? Lena lowered her violin, giving Mira that look, the one that said she knew exactly what they were really talking about. Mama, it's okay to try hard things even when you might fail. That's how you get better. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just weren't listening. Mira threw a dish towel at her, and Lena laughed, going back to her practice. But the words stuck. Because Lena was right. Mira had been so focused on protecting herself from failure, from getting hurt again, that she'd stopped taking risks, and maybe it was time to be as brave as her 9-year-old daughter. The night of the recital, Mira arrived early to help set up. The school auditorium buzzed with nervous energy, parents adjusting cameras, students warming up in corners, teachers corralling chaos. Mira found Lena backstage, pacing like a caged animal. You're going to be great, Mira said. What if I mess up? Then you keep playing. That's what professionals do. I'm not a professional. I'm 9. You're the best 9-year-old violinist I know. I'm the only 9-year-old violinist you know. Mira pulled her into a hug. You're going to be amazing, and even if you're not, I'll still be proud of you. Lena squeezed back, then pulled away, straightening her dress. Is Damon coming? He said he'd be here. Good. I told him front row, center seat. If he's late, I'm demoting him from dad to guy I occasionally tolerate. Mira bit back a smile. I'll make sure he knows the stakes. She left Lena with the other performers and headed to the auditorium. The front row was filling up fast, but the center seat sat empty, a coat draped over it. Damon's coat. Mira's heart did something complicated as she slid into the seat beside it. He'd gotten here early to save seats, had thought ahead, had kept his promise. 5 minutes before the recital started, Damon appeared, slightly breathless, carrying flowers. Sorry, traffic. He collapsed into the seat beside her, setting the bouquet on his lap. Did I miss anything? Just the pre-show panic. How bad? She threatened to demote you if you were late. To what? Guys she occasionally tolerates. Damon winced. That's harsh. That's Lena. The lights dimmed, and the first performer took the stage. Mira tried to focus on the music, but she was hyper-aware of Damon beside her. The way he shifted in his seat, the way his knee almost touched hers, the way he gripped the flowers like a lifeline. When Lena's name was called, they both sat up straighter. She walked onto the stage looking tiny and terrified and impossibly brave. Her violin looked huge in her small hands. She settled into position, took a breath, and began to play. The first notes were shaky. Mira's hands clenched in her lap. But then Lena found her rhythm, and the music transformed. It was raw and emotional and technically imperfect, but it told a story about loss and hope, and people finding their way back to each other. Mira's eyes burned, Beside her, Damon had gone very still, barely breathing. Halfway through, Lena hit a wrong note. Stumbled. For half a beat, Mira thought she might stop. But Lena kept going, adjusted, found her way back to the melody. She finished strong, the last note hanging in the air like a question. The auditorium erupted in applause. Lena bowed, saw them in the front row, and grinned so wide it looked painful. Damon was on his feet before Mira could move, clapping so hard his hands had to hurt. And when Lena came off stage 20 minutes later, he handed her the flowers and said, "You were perfect. I messed up in the middle. You recovered. That's better than perfect." Lena threw her arms around him, and Mira watched them, something settling in her chest that felt suspiciously like peace. They went for ice cream after, Lena's choice, her tradition after every performance. The three of them crowded into a booth at the old parlor on Main Street, and Lena talked nonstop about the recital, dissecting every moment with the intensity of a professional critic. And then Jacob dropped his bow during his solo, and I felt so bad for him, but also it was kind of funny because he just stood there staring at it like it betrayed him. Damon snorted into his coffee. Poor kid. I know, but also always have a backup plan. That's what Mama taught me. Smart advice. Ooh, she's full of smart advice, like don't touch the stove and vegetables won't kill you, and feelings are complicated but you still have to deal with them. Mira choked on her water. I don't sound like that. You absolutely sound like that. I'm inspiring. You're preachy. Lena Grace Halden. Kidding! You're very inspiring and wise and I love you. Lena grinned, then turned to Damon. You should tell Mama she's inspiring. She needs to hear it more. Damon's gaze settled on Mira, warm and steady. Your mama is the most inspiring person I've ever met. See? He gets it. Mira felt heat climb her neck. Can we please talk about literally anything else? Nope. I'm on a roll. Lena scooped up another spoonful of ice cream. So when are you two going to admit you like each other? Mira nearly dropped her spoon. What? You heard me. You're always looking at each other when you think the other one isn't watching. It's obvious. Lena, and I'm 9, not blind. So just tell each other already. The tension is exhausting. Damon was doing a terrible job of hiding his smile. She makes a good point. Don't encourage her. I'm just saying she's very perceptive. I'm extremely perceptive, Lena agreed. It's a gift. Mira looked between them, saw the matching expressions of barely contained amusement, and realized she'd lost control of this conversation entirely. Fine. You want honesty? Here's honesty. She looked at Damon. I don't know what this is between us. I don't know if I'm ready, and I'm terrified of getting hurt again. But Lena's right. I do like you, and I think maybe we should figure out what that means. The amusement drained from Damon's expression, replaced by something raw and hopeful. Okay. Okay? Yeah. We'll figure it out, together. Lena pumped her fist in the air. But finally took you long enough. We're not together, Mira clarified. We're just talking about maybe being together. That's adult code for you're totally going to be together, but you're scared to admit it. When did you become a relationship expert? I read a lot. Romance novels are very educational. You're 9. You shouldn't be reading romance novels. Too late. I've already read 6. Mira made a mental note to monitor Lena's library choices more carefully. But looking at her daughter's delighted expression, at Damon's quiet smile, she couldn't bring herself to regret this moment. Messy and imperfect as it was, it felt like progress. The following week, Damon asked Mira to dinner. Not a family dinner, not a bookshop planning session, an actual date. Like, with just the two of us? Mira asked, hating how uncertain she sounded. Unless you want to bring Lena. She'd probably insist on chaperoning. She probably would. They settled on Saturday night. Lena would stay with Mrs. Chen, who was thrilled to be part of what she called the reunion tour. Mira tried on 4 different outfits before settling on dark jeans and a green sweater that Lena declared perfect, but not trying too hard. Damon picked her up at 7, looking nervous in a way that made him seem younger. He took her to a small Italian place on the edge of town. Quiet, intimate, the kind of restaurant that existed for conversations. They sat across from each other, and for the first 5 minutes, neither spoke. The silence stretched, awkward and heavy, until Mira couldn't take it anymore. This is weird, she said. So weird. We've done this before, had dinner, talked. Why is it weird now? Because the stakes are higher, Damon said quietly. Last time, we were just two people who liked each other. Now we're two people trying to figure out if we can build something real after everything that happened.
Mira traced the rim of her water glass. What if we can't? Then at least we'll know, but I don't think that's how this ends. You sound very confident for someone who destroyed us the first time. Damon flinched but didn't look away. You're right, I did. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for it. But I need you to know I'm not that person anymore. I'm not running. I'm not making decisions for you. I'm here, and I'm asking you to give us a real chance. Mira wanted to say yes immediately, wanted to leap across the table and kiss him and pretend the past didn't exist. But she'd learned the hard way that feelings weren't enough. I need time, she said. I need to see that this is real, that you're committed, not just to Lena, but to me, to us. How much time? I don't know. However long it takes for me to trust you again. Damon nodded slowly. I can do that, but I need something from you too. What? Stop protecting yourself so hard that you don't let me in. I know I hurt you. I know I broke your trust. But if we're going to do this, you have to be willing to risk getting hurt again, because I can't prove myself if you won't let me try. The words hit like a punch, because he was right. Mira had been so focused on building walls that she'd forgotten how to open doors. Okay, she said finally, I'll try. But if you hurt me again, I won't. You can't promise that. People hurt each other, even when they don't mean to. Then I promise to be honest, to communicate, to fight for us instead of running away. It wasn't a perfect promise, but it was real, and maybe that was enough. They spent the rest of dinner talking, not about the past, but about the present, about the bookshop's success, about Lena's increasing collection of rescue plans for hypothetical scenarios, about Mira's dream of starting a music program for underprivileged kids. I could help with that, Damon said. The program. We could use the bookshop as a base, offer lessons, instruments, space. That would be expensive. I have money from the old life. Clean money now, invested properly. Let me use it for something good. Mira studied him. You're serious? Completely. I want to build something that matters, with you. The weight of those words settled between them, heavy with possibility. When Damon drove her home, he walked her to the door but didn't try to kiss her, just stood there, hands in his pockets, looking at her like she was something precious. Thank you, he said, for giving me a chance. Thank you for not giving up. He smiled, small and genuine. Good night, Mira. Good night. She watched him drive away, then went inside to find Lena and Mrs. Chen playing cards at the kitchen table. How was it? Lena asked immediately. Good. Weird, but good. Did he kiss you? Lena? What? It's a reasonable question. Mrs. Chen chuckled. She's got you there. No, he didn't kiss me. We just talked. Boring. Talking is important. Talking is what people do when they're too scared to kiss. Mira pointed at her daughter. Bedtime. Now. Before you get any more ideas. Lena went, but not before giving Mira a knowing look that said this conversation wasn't over. The next 2 months unfolded carefully. Damon showed up consistently. For Lena's school events, for bookshop emergencies, for family dinners that became a weekly tradition. He listened when Mira talked about her fears, respected her boundaries, and slowly, carefully, proved that he wasn't going anywhere. They went on more dates. Sometimes just the two of them, sometimes all three. They argued occasionally about parenting decisions, about bookshop inventory, about whether pineapple belonged on pizza. But they argued honestly, without running, and learned to apologize when they were wrong. Lena watched it all with the satisfaction of someone who'd orchestrated the whole thing. She declared herself chief relationship officer and instituted mandatory family meetings where they discussed feelings and made plans and ate too much pizza. It was messy and imperfect, and sometimes exhausting. It was also the happiest Mira had been in a decade. In early June, Damon proposed a community event at the bookshop, a recital series featuring local musicians. Mira immediately thought of her students,
of the kids who loved music but never got to perform. "We could make it a regular thing," she said, excitement building. "Monthly performances. Open to everyone. No pressure. Just joy." "I love it. Let's do it." They planned the first recital for late June. Lena helped design flyers, and Maya coordinated volunteers. The response was overwhelming. 20 performers signed up in the first week. The night of the event, the bookshop overflowed. People sat on the floor, leaned against shelves, crowded into every available space. And one by one, musicians took the small stage they'd set up near the reading nook. A teenager played guitar. An elderly man recited poetry. A group of middle schoolers performed a string quartet. And then, at the end, Mira stepped up with her violin. She hadn't performed in years, hadn't wanted to, but standing there, in the bookshop they'd built together, surrounded by her daughter and the man she was learning to love again, it felt right. She played the piece she'd been working on for months, something she'd written herself, born from grief and hope and second chances. It wasn't perfect. Her fingers stumbled in places, and the emotion made her vibrato shake. But she played through it, let the music say everything she couldn't put into words. The piece told a story about a woman who'd been broken and put herself back together, about a man who'd run from love and spent years finding his way home, about a child who became the bridge between two fractured hearts. The melody wove through pain and anger, lingered on loneliness, then slowly, tentatively, found its way to something that sounded like forgiveness. When she finished, the room was silent for 3 full seconds. Then Lena started clapping, fierce and proud, and everyone joined in. Mira lowered her violin and looked at Damon in the front row. He was crying. Actually crying, tears streaming down his face, and he didn't bother wiping them away. Their eyes met, and Mira saw everything she needed to see: love, regret, hope, and a promise that this time he meant it. After the recital, after everyone left and Lena fell asleep in the reading nook, Mira and Damon sat together on the floor, backs against the counter. "That was beautiful," Damon said quietly. "Your piece. It was about us, about breaking and healing and trying again." "I know." He reached for her hand, laced their fingers together. "I heard every word you couldn't say." Mira turned to face him. "I'm ready." "For what?" "To stop being scared. To stop waiting for you to leave. To trust that this is real." Damon's breath caught. "Are you sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway. Because Lena's right. Love is about showing up and choosing each other, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." He cupped her face with his free hand, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "I love you. I've loved you since the day I met you, and I'll love you until the day I die. That's not dramatic. It's just true." "I love you too," Mira whispered. "And I'm terrified, but I'm choosing you anyway." Damon closed the distance between them, and this time when they kissed, it wasn't desperate or afraid. It was certain, a promise made without words, sealed with breath and touch and time. When they pulled apart, Lena's voice drifted from the reading nook. "Finally, I thought you'd never get there." "You're supposed to be asleep," Mira called. "I'm supervising. Someone has to make sure you don't mess this up." Damon laughed, the sound bright and free. "We've got a built-in chaperone for life. Lucky us. The luckiest." They stayed there until Lena actually fell asleep, then carried her to the car together and drove home as a family. Over the next year, they fell into a rhythm that felt less like falling and more like building. Damon moved into a house 3 blocks from Mira's rental, close enough for spontaneous dinners, but separate enough to maintain boundaries. They dated properly, took their time, learned each other's new patterns and old wounds. The music program launched in September. They started with 6 students and grew to 20 by December. Damon funded instruments, Mira taught lessons, and Lena appointed herself assistant instructor, helping younger kids tune their violins and offering encouragement with the authority of someone twice her age. The bookshop thrived. They added a coffee bar in the corner, expanded the children's section, and hired 2 more part-time employees. The monthly recitals became a community fixture, drawing musicians from 3 towns over. And slowly, carefully, Mira and Damon rebuilt what they'd lost. They had their first real fight in October. About money, of all things. Damon wanted to pay off Mira's student loans, and she'd refused, insulted that he thought she needed rescuing. I'm not trying to rescue you, he'd said, voice tight. I'm trying to help. I don't need your help. I've been handling my own finances for 10 years. I know, but we're partners now. Isn't that what partners do? Partners ask before making unilateral decisions. Partners don't just swoop in and fix things. They'd gone to bed angry that night, in their separate houses, and Mira had lain awake convinced she'd made a mistake, that they were too broken, too scarred, too fundamentally damaged to make this work. But the next morning, Damon had shown up with coffee and an apology. You're right, I overstepped. I was trying to ease your burden, but I should have asked first. I'm sorry, too, for assuming the worst, for not hearing what you were actually saying. So we're okay? We're learning. That's better than okay. They'd made a rule after that. When they fought, they talked it through within 24 hours. No running, no silence, just honesty, even when it hurt. In December, Lena turned 10. They threw her a party at the bookshop, complete with a treasure hunt through the stacks and enough cake to feed half the town. Watching Lena open presents surrounded by friends, Mira felt something click into place. This was what she'd been fighting for. This moment, this joy, this family. That night, after the party, after Lena had gone to bed buzzing with sugar and happiness, Damon sat with Mira on her porch. I want to ask you something, he said. Okay. Not yet. I'm going to. Ask you something, soon, but I wanted to give you a heads up. Mira's heart started racing. Are you talking about what I think you're talking about? Probably, but I'm not doing it now because you look terrified and I don't want the answer to be no. I'm not terrified. You're gripping that coffee mug like you're trying to strangle it. Mira looked down, realized he was right, and loosened her hold. Okay, maybe a little terrified. Of me? Or of marriage? Of messing this up? We're good right now. What if we change things and it all falls apart? Damon took the coffee mug from her hands, set it aside, and held both her hands in his. We've already survived the worst thing that could happen to us. We survived me leaving. We survived 10 years apart. We survived rebuilding from nothing. Whatever comes next, we can handle it. You can't know that. I can, because we're not the same people we were. We've learned how to fight fair, how to apologize, how to choose each other even when it's hard. That's not going to change because we sign a piece of paper. Is that your pitch? It's just a piece of paper? No, my pitch is that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to wake up next to you and argue about coffee makers and watch Lena grow up and build something that matters. And I want to do it officially, with witnesses and cake and a ridiculous ceremony that Lena will insist on planning. Mira felt tears prick her eyes. She would absolutely insist on planning it. She'd probably write the vows and critique our outfits and make a spreadsheet. They laughed together, and the fear that had been clawing at Mira's chest started to ease. I'm not saying no, she said quietly, but I'm not saying yes yet either. I need a little more time. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. 6 months later, on a warm June evening, Mira made her decision. They were at the bookshop, setting up for another recital. Lena was arranging chairs, Damon was testing the sound system, and Mira was watching them work together with the easy familiarity of people who'd done this 100 times. This was her life. This strange, beautiful, imperfect life they'd built from the wreckage of the old one, and she wanted to keep it. Damon, she called across the shop. He looked up, saw something in her expression, and immediately crossed to her. What's wrong? Nothing. Everything's right. That's the problem. I'm not following. Ask me. His eyes widened. Now? Now. We're in the middle of setup. Lena's right there. People are going to start arriving in 20 minutes. I don't care. Ask me now. Damon glanced at Lena, who'd stopped working and was watching them with poorly concealed excitement. He looked back at Mira, took a breath, and dropped to one knee right there in the middle of the bookshop. Mira Halden, you're stubborn and terrifying, and you make me want to be better every single day. You gave me a second chance I didn't deserve, and you trusted me with the most precious thing in your life. Will you marry me? He pulled out a ring, simple, elegant, exactly right, and held it up like an offering. Mira looked at him, at this man who'd broken her and come back and spent 2 years proving he could be trusted. At Lena, who was vibrating with anticipation. At the bookshop they'd built, the life they'd created.
the future they were still writing. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." The shop erupted in cheers. Mira hadn't realized Maya and the other employees had been watching from behind the shelves, but suddenly everyone was clapping and Lena was shrieking and Damon was sliding the ring onto her finger with hands that shook slightly. He stood, pulled her into a kiss that was probably inappropriate given the audience, and Mira didn't care. She kissed him back, poured 10 years of grief and hope and love into it, and when they finally broke apart, she was crying. "Happy tears?" Damon asked. "The happiest." Lena crashed into both of them, wrapping her arms around their waist. "Finally, I've been waiting forever for you two to figure this out." "You're 10, Mira said, laughing through tears. "You haven't been waiting forever." "It felt like forever, but now you're getting married and we're going to be a real family, and I can stop worrying about you messing it up." "We might still mess it up," Damon said. "That's part of being human." "Yeah, but you'll mess it up together. That's what matters." They stood there in a 3-person hug in the middle of the bookshop while the staff pretended to work and failed spectacularly at hiding their smiles. And Mira felt something she hadn't felt in over a decade. Complete. They got married 4 months later in October, in the same stone music hall where Damon had walked back into Mira's life. Lena insisted on officiating. She'd gotten certified online specifically for this purpose. And her ceremony about love and second chances and choosing each other made half the guests cry. The reception was at the bookshop, because where else would it be? Dancing between bookcases, cake in the reading nook, toast that went on too long and meant everything. Mrs. Chen gave a speech about watching them rebuild their lives. Maya talked about the power of books and second chances. And Lena, 11 now and impossibly wise, stood up and said simply, "My parents taught me that love isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And they show up for each other every single day." At the end of the night, when the last guest left, the 3 of them sat on the floor in the same spot where Mira and Damon had first kissed as a couple 2 years earlier. "So," Lena said, leaning against Mira, "what now?" "Now we keep going," Mira said. "We wake up tomorrow and choose each other again, and the day after that, and the day after that." "That's it? That's the big plan?" "That's it." Lena considered this, then nodded. "I like it. Simple. Honest. No drama." "We'll still have drama," Damon said. "That's life." "Yeah, but we'll have it together. As a family." "As a family," Mira echoed. 2 years later, on Christmas Eve, they returned to the Stone Music Hall, the same building where Mira had once sat alone, trying to quiet her nerves, where Damon had walked back in and upended her entire world. But tonight, they arrived together. Mira, Damon, and Lina, who was now almost 13 and taller than Mira by half an inch. The hall was hosting its annual winter concert, and Lina was performing a solo, the same piece Mira had written years ago about breaking and healing. Lina had arranged it for violin and piano, and Damon had been secretly taking lessons for 6 months so he could accompany her. They weren't perfect. Damon missed 2 notes, and Lina's vibrato wavered in the emotional sections. But they played together, and that was what mattered. After the concert, they walked through the town square, past the lights and decorations, past the bookshop that was now closed for the holiday. The music program had expanded to 5 locations across 3 towns, serving over 100 students. The bookshop had opened a second location, and Mira had just been offered a position developing curriculum for the district's entire music program. Life was full and chaotic and beautiful. "Can I tell you something?" Lena asked, stopping in the middle of the square. "Always," Mira said. "I used to be angry. When I was younger. About not having a dad. About you being sad all the time. About feeling like we were incomplete." Mira's chest tightened. "Lena, let me finish. I was angry, and I didn't know how to say it. But then Damon came back, and I watched you both try so hard to figure it out. And I realized something. We were never incomplete. We were just waiting." "Waiting for what?" Damon asked quietly. "For everyone to be ready, you had to learn how to stay. Mama had to learn how to trust again. And I had to learn that families come in all different shapes, and none of them are wrong." She looked between them, this child who'd somehow become wiser than both of them combined. "So thank you for fighting for this, for fighting for us, for showing me what it looks like when people choose love even when it's hard." Mira couldn't speak.
Damon's hand found hers, and they stood there in the square, surrounded by Christmas lights and the ghosts of who they used to be. "We love you," Damon said, voice rough. "More than anything." "I know. I love you too, both of you, even when you're embarrassing." "We're not embarrassing," Mira managed. "You're holding hands in public and crying. That's the definition of embarrassing." "Fair point." They walked home together through the cold December night, three people who'd found each other through pain and stayed because of choice. And when they reached the house, their house now, the one they'd bought together last spring, Lena stopped at the door. "You know what the best part is?" she asked. "What?" Mira said. "This is just the beginning. We get to keep doing this, keep choosing each other, keep building this weird, messy, perfect family." "It's not perfect," Damon said. "No, but it's ours, and that's better." She was right. It wasn't perfect. There would be more fights, more challenges, more moments of doubt and fear, but they'd face them together. These three people who'd learned that love wasn't about perfect beginnings or guaranteed endings. It was about showing up, about choosing each other, about building something real from broken pieces. And as they walked inside, ready for whatever came next, Mira realized she wasn't afraid anymore. Because this, messy and imperfect and absolutely real, was exactly what she'd been searching for. Home.